everyone, and welcome to another Fresh Fiction Video Book Club. Today's guest is celebrating really her first release earlier this year, Nishita Parekh, and her book is The Night of the Storm. Nishita, so good to see you. I'm happy to have you at Fresh Fiction.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, Nishita, to get things started, tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you start writing? What was the inspiration here?
Yeah, so in 2017, when Hurricane Harvey hit Texas, I was living in an apartment and I was basically stranded. I mean, I was safe because I was on the second story, but there was water everywhere, so I couldn't go anywhere. And I ended up having a bunch of my family members come over to my place to ride out the storm. And it was just such a crazy time in Texas. We had boats on the streets, rescuing folks. And I remember a few days before the hurricane was about to hit, all the grocery stores were out of toilet paper. Because I think our first instinct is to always make sure, like, we will be caught without food and water, but we will not have a shortage of toilet paper. It was just a very weird time. So uh, at one point, when my family came over, we were like five adults, two kids, crammed in my one-bedroom apartment. We could hear rescue choppers flying overhead. I mean, spoiler alert, nobody in the family got murdered. I feel like I should call that out in this book. Thank God my family is not like the awful characters in the book. I made sure to thank them in the acknowledgments because I wanted them to still talk to me after reading the book. But the whole experience kind of gave me an idea of setting a locked room mystery in a hurricane because I don't think that's been done very often. And I think after the pandemic, we can all relate to the fact that, if you spend too much time with your family, bad things are going to happen at some point.
Now, are you sure there wasn't some additional inspiration during that locked up time? Surely somebody was really getting on your nerves there to prompt a bit of a thriller mystery there. But with all of that, I mean, another important part in this story is that you are bringing your Indian heritage into play. How important was that for you to be sure and incorporate that and all the different elements throughout the story?
Yeah, so I grew up in Bombay and I came to the United States when I was a teenager. So I've lived like in both worlds, which are so different from each other. And I've been, exposed to culture out here, but I also have relatives back home. So I'm caught between these two worlds. So it made sense. I mean, they say write what you know. So it made sense for me to have my protagonist also be an immigrant who's trying to juggle these two different identities. When you move to a new country, you have to decide what parts of yourself do you let go to assimilate and what do you hold on to. And all the characters in the novel in some ways are, struggling with that a bit. And I also wanted to use this novel to explore the very real social issues that we have in our culture. So in India, the divorce rate is less than 1%, less than 1%. That does not mean that Indians have cracked the code on how to make marriages work. It just means that women tend to stay in deeply unhappy marriages, for the sake of society or, to keep their children happy, because there's like a real social stigma attached to something like divorce. And unfortunately, even if you immigrate to a country like United States, where individual freedom is prized above everything else, right? Women, Indian women still have that pressure to make marriages work at any cost. We're still kind of subjugated by our culture. So I wanted to explore those issues as well in this book.
And it's not just the marriage aspect either, because there are issues with being a single mother. There are issues of infertility. I mean, there's all these other societal elements that come into play. And I think the other aspect is being able to highlight how important family is. I think it's three different generations who are all trapped together. Again, it's that playing off of each other in the family of what all is that meaning. So it's not just perhaps in a unhappy marriage, but how are you balancing those things and making the justifications? And do you have to justify to the family in those inner dynamics? I mean, how much fun did you have in playing off the different relationships within the family trapped in the home to express, here's the close relationships, here are ones that might not be what they seem. Again, all those normal dynamics that people can encounter.
Yeah, so the most fun I had was creating the character of grandma, who's like this oldest person in the house. And, she has absolutely lost the filters between her mouth and her brain. So she pretty much says whatever she wants. So it was really fun writing her dialogues, seeing her kind of give a hard time to her daughters-in-law, kind of like creating some drama between the two sisters-in-law, playing them off of each other. And again, we've lived through COVID, so we know when you're in close quarters, with people that you're not used to for extended periods of time, all these tensions that you have are bound to come to the surface. And funny story, initially, I didn't have the two protagonists as sisters. I had them as friends. So Seema and Jia, who are the sisters in the book, I was writing them as just close friends. But the feedback I was getting was that this relationship is too toxic. I would not be friends with this person. So I had to find a way to force them to be around each other, even if they don't really like each other that much. And that happens with family. So that's how I ended up with the family construct.
Well, one of the other elements in this book, and I'm trying also not to give spoilers as far as the thriller and the mystery portion of it, but there's a lot of elements we were speaking of kind of the what are the markers of success. And we talked about that in another recent video book club, and all of the additional pressure from even social media that come into play. And again, how important was that to incorporate into the story as things were progressing on? So, what really is success for some of these characters?
Yeah, so these characters are South Asian and we're called the model minority, right? Because you get perfect grades. That's what we're taught as children. You have to get perfect grades and it's never ending. Once you get the good grades, you have to get a good job, then you have to get married, then you have to have a first child, then you have to have a second child, then those children have to get good grades. So you're stuck in this vicious cycle without having the opportunity to pause and breathe and ask yourself, what is it that you really want to do? Because it feels like your life is just laid out. And God forbid anyone, deviate even slightly from that path, then you're kind of, shunned, not necessarily shunned, but at least, there are whispers about, oh, maybe this person is not doing so well just because you don't have the standard American dream with the big house and the perfect family. So the characters in this book are all trying to find out what happiness for them means. And some of the characters are not having true happiness, but they're just trying to preserve that mystery of, oh, I have the perfect family, everything's great, even when things are not really good on the inside.
Now, I know that with your day job, you're a software programmer. So, what has that transition been like? And also, how do you balance everything from being a programmer in a tech world to more the creative side and getting your writing in?
So, first of all, there is no balance. There is absolutely no balance. There is just pure chaos. And I've just learned to embrace the chaos. I have a full-time job as a programmer. I have a 2-year-old who goes to daycare part-time. So lots, I'm like dropping things all the time, like dropping balls all the time. And I've just accepted that. Um, but I was able to pursue this dream of writing because I had a family who supports me. I mean, even right now, I'm able to do this interview with me because my husband is probably chasing my kid around the house right as we speak. So you definitely, as a mother, if you want to succeed in a career, you definitely need to have a family supporting you, believing in your dreams. And I had that. When I sold this book, my baby was 3 months old and I wasn't getting any sleep. And now I was editing this novel on a contract while, getting like less than 2 hours of sleep. So I feel like the book should come with a disclaimer that parts of this are produced by a sleep deprived brain. But it was hard, but it's been my passion. I've always wanted to write. I grew up in libraries reading books all the time, and I've always wanted to write. So it was worth it to get up at like 4 in the morning to try to get some writing done before my baby woke up. But I feel like the journey has been worth it.
Did you also find a challenge in changing your mindset in going from the day-to-day engineering elements to, okay, now I can put that aside and now let me focus on the thriller aspect, the mystery. I've got to go kill people now. How do you work that dichotomy?
Yeah, so interestingly, what I've discovered is that what I do for a living, which is like writing, computer code, it turns out it's not that different from creating a murder mystery because they both have like puzzle pieces that you're kind of putting together. So, for example, if I'm writing computer code, there are rules that I have to follow. And if you're writing a murder mystery, you have to follow the rules of the genre, right? So you need to have certain conventions that you cannot break, which is the same for computer programming. And when you're trying to find out any issue with a computer software, like something's not working, it's almost like trying to solve a mystery. In this case, there's just some line of code that's not working. So I kind of felt like I was still engaging the same parts of my brain. Obviously, I mean, with the book, I was able to kind of, creatively express other things about my culture and the protagonist, but it didn't feel that much of a switch for me.
I think that's so interesting because I'm also an engineer. And I found in talking with different writers and what they do, I see that there's a lot of similarities where they are putting together these longer novels. I'm taking some of those tips into how I'm having to write different process engagements, different presentations. I also still need to tell a story. And so, kind of forcing myself to go through those same organizational elements.
Mhm.
So, I'm guessing with all of this and knowing a lot of times what's involved with the programming and engineering, that are you more of an overall plotter and are you working off of an outline? Or are there still elements where you kind of start going by the seat of your pants and it's like, oh, wait, I didn't expect this particular surprise, and how am I going to adapt to it?
Yeah, so it's definitely a mix of both, but I do need to have a high level outline before I start working. I need to know who gets killed, how it happens, and I'm more interested in the why of it, like why is someone compelled to kill another human being? So those kind of questions, I do have it sorted out. But when you write a book, you can just find that some characters just surprise you, and they take on a more important role than you had thought of before. And the first draft that I wrote looks nothing like what's out there published today from the book. So it definitely changes in the rewrites for sure. So I am a plotter, but the story changes with rewrites.
Okay. With this also being your first book getting published, what was the biggest surprise for you as you were going through this entire process?
Um, I was surprised by how long, I mean, and I have complete respect for the amount of work that it takes to put a book out. Like, it's not just about writing the words, it takes like so much time and effort, and it takes the work of so many teams to get a book out in a reader's hands. So I was just surprised by the effort that it takes, whether it's getting a cover design sorted out or multiple rounds of editing. I have gone through so many editing rounds. There's a copy editor and there's a line editor I've read this so many times that at this point I don't know. I don't know what I would get by reading the book because I've read it so many times already. So that part was surprising, was just realizing the magnitude of the amount of work it takes to get a book out in the world, which is why you see that these publishing deadlines are like years in the future. So if you sold a novel today, it wouldn't be in bookshelves more than a year later. And that's average because there's just all of this behind the scenes work done by fabulous teams that make sure that people know about your book.
Mhm. Okay, and that question might be a little bit off the wall too, because working in programming, engineering, there's a lot of introverts in these areas, right? So how has been the marketing elements of promoting your book? I mean, also a little bit different from the day to day of not only are you putting your work out there, you're having to put yourself out there. Have there been additional challenges or things that you've encountered that again you didn't quite expect?
Yeah, so you got that right. I am a complete introvert. I'm one of those people who would like, I'm eating my lunch at my desk. I don't want to talk to anyone. I'm one of those, like, I just want to write my code and go home. But what I've noticed is that, I still enjoy connecting with readers and, doing sessions like this. So that has not been taxing at all. So I've done marketing in a way that still feels comfortable within the boundaries of, what I'm used to. I initially had hopes that, I would go viral on TikTok or whatever, but that has not happened because I made zero videos on TikTok. I did spend a lot of hours looking at other people's videos, but I've not been, so I'm not comfortable, doing certain things. So I just do whatever works for me.
Again, with how much family and your culture are part of this novel, are there other elements that you wish that you had been able to put in? Or, man, here was another aspect that it would have been really great that I wish I could share with people.
For the family aspect, no, but I do remember during the hurricane, I was part of a WhatsApp group, and the chats there were so crazy. I wish I could have found a way to incorporate that. Like, we were getting pictures of alligators going in people's backyards, and at one point I saw the same photo from three different suburbs, at which point we were like, okay, maybe that's not, it's not the same alligator going in three different places, posing the same way. That's probably not a real picture. But it was just a crazy time. I wish I could have captured some of that chaos.
And were there other challenges in bringing this story to life? Um, because, I mean, frankly, there's not a lot of modern fiction out there that are dealing incorporating the Indian culture there in Houston, right? It's like, so were people saying, well, are you sure you want to do this, or any other kind of barriers like that that you were really trying to bust through?
Yes, so I did have doubts because you don't often see people like me, writing mystery novels. And this is a story with a completely South Asian, centered on a South Asian family. And you don't see those often either in mystery genre. So I did have some doubts. But luckily, I was able to get a literary agent. My agent is Lori Galvin. She's amazing, who gave me the confidence that we would be able to sell the book, that there is a market out there, there are editors out there hungry for such stories, and there are readers out there. I've received so many messages from readers who've appreciated the insights into a different culture. At the same time, I've gotten messages from South Asian women who are so happy to finally see their issues, represented, and to see themselves represented in mainstream fiction, which doesn't happen a lot. So it's just been really a gratifying journey to see this come to life. But yes, I did have doubts, but I think with the right team, if you land with the right people, it's easier. And hopefully, if the book does well, and it's easier to make a market case, that business case, that these kind of books sell, it will inspire more South Asian writers to write their stories. And I can't wait to read more South Asian stories by all the writers that are out there.
Mhm. I mean, and there were just so many different characters in there that I found very relatable. And where I'm like, oh no, I have friends that are going through some of these types of relationships. Luckily not murder, but yeah. But again, I think it's being able to bring all different sorts of outlooks and experiences into the stories. And I think that's what readers really find appealing. For some, it's being exposed to things that they're not familiar with, and others, it's like, oh no, I can see people in this. and they just all become more stories that we're really invested in, and continue to want to see what else is happening with them.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I feel like the book explores a different culture, but still the themes that it is looking over are universal, whether it's the pressure of motherhood. I mean, we have so many single moms out here, and it's so hard. There's so little support for single moms across, all countries, I feel. If you see an urgent care, if you see the waiting room of a children's urgent care, it would be like 90% women. The burden of child rearing is completely on women, and it is so hard when you're a single mom. So I hope people are inspired by the representation of a brave, strong single woman, mom in this book.
Well, Nishita, I want to switch over to what we call our fresh fiction facts. These are a series of quick fire questions with answers, hopefully off the top of your head. Okay. First up, who would you most want to be stuck in an elevator with? Speaking of
Hmm.
claustrophobic engagements, right?
Yeah. um Gillian Flynn, I love her book Gone Girl. If I would be stuck with her, I would just pick her brain and ask her, when is her next book gonna come out? I've been waiting forever.
What is your favorite writing fuel? What keeps you going when you're sitting in front of the computer?
Coffee. It is the fuel that keeps me going in general, because again, I have a 2-year-old toddler whose energy I cannot match. I am surviving on caffeine.
What is the craziest thing that you have bought online or as an as seen on TV item?
Haven't got any crazy items. I mean, I'm ordering like diapers and a lot of boring kid stuff. So yeah, that's my shopping cart. It's all for my kid.
Well, what luxury item can you not live without?
My Amazon Prime subscription. Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to get things delivered, and I watch TV shows. It's what I have in the background when I'm doing dishes and all.
How do you unwind after a good or a bad writing day?
I go for a walk, just put on some nice relaxing music and go for a walk, get the hormones flowing. That always works.
What's something that can immediately take you out of a story? Bad writing, mistakes, what?
Um, Probably if there's a genre switch, which doesn't happen often, but if you're reading a murder mystery and then suddenly the romance element, starts picking up, then it kind of, what am I reading again? Because it doesn't match the reader's expectations.
Mhm. Okay. What is something other than books and diapers? Because again, keeping in mind with the kiddo, that you own a ridiculous amount of.
Mm, Shoes. I used to buy
Shoot.
them a lot before COVID, like all these different ones. And then I stopped going out. Then I moved to a remote job and they're just gathering dust in my closet.
So relate to that. It's like the entire wardrobe changed
Yeah.
with COVID, and it's just kind of gradually getting back into things as I go into the office. And it's like, it's all about comfort really now. It's like,
Yeah.
it's okay.
It's like, what appeal does Casual Friday have anymore, right? Like, we used to be excited about Casual Friday.
Exactly. So all the different shoes just kind of sit back in the closet along with the different purses. So yes, I definitely can relate. What do you consider to be your ideal paradise?
Oh, it would be a place with unlimited childcare and some nice drinks and be on an island somewhere. That would be my paradise. With a book, with a good book.
Well, along those lines, what is your most dog-eared or reread book?
Gone Girl.
What book have you read that you most enjoyed the movie or TV adaptation of?
I like I mean, when I grew up, I loved the Harry Potter books and enjoyed the movies when they came out.
Okay, so when you're in Texas, you know that you're going on different road trips because that you've got to drive everywhere in Texas. So, what is your favorite road trip snack that you grab from the gas station?
Oh, it has to be the thing with the most junk in it. Like, I think there's some chips, I forget the brand, but it's like the spiciest version. Like, I know it's gonna burn down my throat and I'm gonna regret it later, but I grab them anyways.
Hey, if you came with the warning label, what would it say?
Can't stop working midway or something.
Okay, you've been kidnapped, but they return you 2 hours later because you will not stop talking about what?
Books.
Books. Endless supply there, right?
Yes.
Okay, but now you're putting together the Mount Rushmore of authors. Which four authors do you think should go on there? Could be either the most inspirational and meaningful to you or your favorites.
So my favorites, certainly Gillian Flynn would go on there. Agatha Christie, I don't think this book would be out there without her inspiration. She's amazing. And as a kid, we would have a lot of John Grisham and Jeffrey Archer books in our house. So they have a special place in my heart. So those two authors would also go up there.
Is there an author that you just have to read their entire backlist and every time a new book comes out, it's an instant buy for you?
Peter Swanson is quickly becoming an auto buy for me. I'm reading his book, A Talent for Murder, right now. I think he writes these great, twisty stories. So I love his work.
Do you read within your own genre when you're writing, or do you tend to keep things separate?
I read indiscriminately, so I don't read for specific. I mean, mystery thrillers, obviously, I love that genre, but I will also read, women's fiction in between. Or if there's a really good rom-com, I love my Sophie Kinsella, the Shopaholic books. Oh, the Bridget Jones Diary. Those are like my comfort foods that I go to relax. So I don't stick to specific genres.
Okay, if it was real, who would you rather encounter? A ghost or an alien?
God, they both sound scary. Alien probably. I've seen too many sci-fi shows. I want to see how much of it they got right. Whether the aliens really look like what we've been told they look like. So probably alien.
Well, and our readers and listeners always want to know, what are you working on next?
So I don't have anything definitive, but I am working on ideas that involve, motherhood. I feel like I'm not done saying everything I have to say about motherhood. It's been such a transformative change in my life. So my next story will probably be something exploring the idea of motherhood in the United States, but we'll see.
Do you still think thriller,
Yes, definitely.
psychological drama elements to that,
Yes,
but just centered
definitely.
around motherhood?
Yes, definitely. I love mystery thrillers. They're my first love, so I will stick to that genre.
Well, and with that, then, what is the best way for our readers and listeners to keep in touch with you and find out the details of whatever might come next?
So I'm on Instagram. It's Nishita_author. You can find that handle. And you can also visit my website, nishitaparekhauthor.com. And yeah, that's the best way to keep in touch with the latest updates.
Fantastic. Nishita, thanks again for joining us this evening. Really enjoyed talking with you, but stick around for the happy hour with our other readers.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Samantha. It was fun talking to you.
Had a great time.